What's up, guys? It's the Actual Justice Warrior here, and today we're talking about Bearing trolling Steve Shives. But first, a little background. For those of you who don't know, Bearing is an Australian YouTuber who actually had his human soul sealed inside the body of a grizzly bear, which is very similar to what happened to Jackrabbit over here.
Don't compare me to him.
Anyway, instead of trying to restore his soul to his human body, Bearing makes YouTube videos mocking feminists and SJWs on the internet. One of those YouTubers that he likes to mock is Steve Shives, somebody who's known for having the longest Twitter block list in fucking human history. Recently, Bearing decided it would be a good idea to troll Steve Shives in his Friday video where he answers questions from his audience, and these are the results.
Up until recently, I was a consumer of content from both sides of the fence. I would enjoy content from people like yourself, Christy Winters, Cat Black, and other similar creators, as well as the likes of Sargon of Akkad, The Amazing Atheist, Bearing, and so forth. I was pushed away from the latter genre recently after a horrible experience at a meetup hosted by an anti-feminist YouTuber, one I've heard you speak about several times. After having a minor disagreement with the YouTuber about the nature of biological sex, several of his fanboys descended on me, calling me horrible names, calling me delusional, and even spitting on me. Several times I pleaded for the YouTuber to come to my aid, but his reaction was to join in, chant horrible, dehumanizing slurs at me, and grope my private parts, gleefully screaming, "I love me some chicks with dicks," and other transphobic slurs. Absolutely crushed, I left the event immediately and was walking to my car when suddenly I was punched from behind and knocked to the ground. I was then kicked, spat on, urinated on, and verbally abused by 5 or more of the fanboys from earlier.
Now, Bearing has been getting a lot of flack for this, both from the SJWs, who always seem to have a fucking hard-on for him, and from some people who he would consider on his side. People seem to feel like it was really improper of Bearing to impersonate a trans victim for the purpose of mocking Steve Shives. However, I feel like this criticism is really shallow. If you look at the 3 things that Bearing actually accomplished by doing this, it was definitely worth it. The first and most obvious is getting Steve Shives to say this.
I love me some chicks with dicks.
He also proved that Steve Shives believes that people who oppose him politically are literally evil.
That's appalling, but sadly not all that surprising. The behavior that you described from the YouTuber, and I don't know who you're talking about, but it could be any one of dozens of people. That's the shitty part.
Steve Shives jumped on the opportunity to slander his political opponents with this post. He shouldn't have read this on air. He shouldn't have said, "Oh, well, there's lots of people I know who could definitely be responsible for that." That's ridiculous. Like, you shouldn't smear your political opponents. A few years ago, I used to be a libertarian contributor on a bunch of online shows. I would often go on with people who completely disagreed with me. And at one point, I actually received a private message from somebody offering me dirt on one of my political opponents. You can see the message on screen and my response. And the reason I responded that way is not because I'm especially a good person or anything like that. I just don't care about people's personal lives. I don't feel the need to attack people personally that I disagree with politically. I find their personal lives irrelevant to the argument. When I was offered this information, I didn't take it. I didn't make any of the information public. I contacted the person who I was being offered information on, and they informed me that they were actually being stalked by somebody online. Steve, on the other hand, ran with the story because it confirmed his bias. It confirmed his feelings that people who disagreed with him weren't just those who had different opinions but were arguing in good faith, but they were actually abusers and assaulters who got pleasure in other people's pain. Bearing wasn't making fun of Steve for being compassionate for the victim. He was making fun of the fact that Steve uses victims as a prop to bludgeon his political enemies.
And the people who were there joining in on the abuse of you, that's the sort of thing that is fostered. That's the attitude that is encouraged by the tone of their videos, by the sort of ponage culture that is brought up.
And the third thing Bearing accomplished was showing how dumb this listen and believe mantra is. Steve Shives took these anonymous allegations as fact and used it to smear his political opponents. In this case, the cost of believing these anonymous allegations just turned out to be a lot of embarrassment for Steve Shives. And of course, this audio clip existing forever.
I love me some chicks with dicks.
However, when we take the listen and believe approach when it comes to public policy, the cost of believing a false allegation is punishing the innocent, ruining somebody's life based on no evidence, and the discarding of our innocent until proven guilty standard, which is the cornerstone of Western justice systems. What Bearing did by mocking Steve Shives, whether intentional or unintentional, was demonstrate the flaw in one of Steve Shives' core arguments. Listen and believe is fucking idiotic. And if you listen and believe, sometimes you're going to look like an idiot. Anyway, so those are my thoughts on Bearing trolling Steve Shives. If you like this video, then please hit that like button. If you want more people to see it, then hit that share button. If you haven't already, please subscribe for more content. This has been the Actual Justice Warrior. Until next time.